You're listening to Inside Real Estate, where we go deep into the minds of real estate professionals. Here are your hosts, Paul and Sal.
Good morning, everybody. Paul Pastelakis here. I'm done with our intro.
I don't mind it.
I'm over it. I think we need a new intro, dude.
We'll leave it to Paul.
Yeah, I am done with the intro. So what's up, everyone? We are Inside Real Estate. We have a very special guest today. His name is Scott Brothers from KW Grand Blanc. How are you, sir?
I'm great. If I was any better, I'd have a twin.
All right. Salvatore Cusmano, how are you today?
I'm good.
You got the lettuce showing through the shirt today?
Yeah.
Lettuce going
I fucking
on?
love that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right. So today we're gonna talk a little bit about demand. Has the housing market peaked? I think that's an interesting topic. I think we're seeing some things changing in the market, so we'll hit on that. I want to hit on Fannie Mae. There's a lawsuit in place to try to get that back in the hands of the private sector because right now I don't think a lot of people know that the government's skimming a lot of money off the top of that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. It's interesting. Sal, we'll talk a little bit about broker versus bankers. I think it's a hot topic right now. I think there's a big
It's a good question that we get asked a lot, right?
a lot of times. Like, what do you mean you're a broker? What does that mean? So I want to explain that a little bit and kind of there's like a war going on in the backgrounds between brokers and bankers, but we'll talk about that. But first and foremost, Scott, a little funny story about Scott. So I golf with Scott. He was wearing Louis Vuitton shoes. Legitimately, like not golf shoes. He just had knee surgery like the week before, so he's limping around. It was unreal. He hit the ball straight every time, 100 yards.
It was all luck.
Right? And then when I was asked to go golfing with him, the guy that there was four of us, and Darren said, "Hey, who's golfing with us?" He said, "Scott Brothers." I go, "Well, are we doing five?"
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was Scott Brothers.
Yeah, everyone confuses that, and I'm like, I'm not that famous.
It's confusing as shit.
I feel like this is a funny thing. I feel like if you're in real estate or you're in mortgage or whatever, like you just have a million friends on Facebook that are real estate agents or mortgage people, right? So like I keep seeing Scott Brothers. I'm like, where's the other brother?
Yeah.
Like,
Where is this guy?
And then when you just said that twin thing, I was like, what? Dude?
Does he really have a twin?
No, and it's crazy.
It was like X-Files.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, yeah, you're Scott Brothers, like the guys on TV. I'm like, no, that ain't
Scott
me.
Brothers.
Yeah, from
Fix or
HGTV.
Flip It or something, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about your background, man. How long have you been in the business? How'd you get into it? You're doing pretty well. I think you're pretty new, but you're kicking ass.
We're doing pretty good, man. So I started off graduating high school, went to Michigan State.
Yeah.
I graduated there with a biochem and math degree.
Congrats for not ever using it.
Yeah, so I worked at a place called Aerotech, which is in Flint on the Gateway Center. They got me a temp job. I worked that for 6 months, and they were like, "Oh yeah, Scott, we're gonna hire you for another term." And I was like, "Cool." I'm like, you're all gun ho, just graduated, trying to make some money, whatever.
Right.
So I do a second 6-month term, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna hire you next quarter as a real employee, not a temp." And I'm like,
I thought I was a real employee.
I was like,
I was working.
yeah, so I'm sitting next to a guy making $8 more an hour than me, and I'm going, I don't think so, bro. So I quit. I started a tree service with a truck, trailer, and I don't know. Like, we did pretty good. I turned that into quite a bit of stuff. We had dump trailers, stump grinders, whatever.
Scott Brothers Tree.
Yeah, Brothers
grinding.
Tree Service, man. So
I'm the only one of you. It's weird.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. So I sold that off to a company, actually in Flat Rock, Michigan, kind of down this way. And they bought it, cashed me out, and I started real estate, man. The lady I bought my house off of worked at Century 21, so I kind of shadowed her for a couple weeks, and then kind of got to know the business. I also learned that I wasn't going to work for her, so I checked in at Remax Platinum. I was there for a little over a year. I sold 63 houses my first year.
That's a lot, by the way, just for the audience to understand. Your first year, 63 houses is pretty darn good.
Yeah, dude, it was pretty good. So we sold that, and
That's
then
$5.25 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good math, buddy.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So we checked in at Keller Williams about 4 or 5 months ago, and we're there. We're here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, so, I mean, in the first year to sell that many houses or to have that many transactions, I asked you this, but I want you to tell the audience, I mean, how did you get going? Because nobody knew you were doing real estate. You're new to it. It takes a little while to get that going.
So it's pretty goofy, man, but this is the bottom line.
Right.
So I walked into Sagebrush, big bar, like in Fenton, whatever. I walk into the breezeway, and there's a cork board on my side, and I had all these business cards. So I literally pulled out my phone. I took 4 pictures, like quadrants or whatever of it. I drank some beers, came back home, sat down in front of the computer, literally zoomed in on my phone, wrote down every single name, phone number, and email into an Excel file. And the next morning, I called every single person. Was like, hey, my name's Scott Brothers. I work at Remax at the time. Blah, blah, blah. This is my story. Young kid trying to start off. If you know anyone looking to buy or sell a house, instead of giving it to a guy that sells $400 a year, I'd really appreciate your business, and I'll make sure you're taken care of.
Wow.
Period. And that's kind of how our database started, and that's kind of how we got going.
Dude, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody do that.
And it's funny because, I feel like everyone's trying to reinvent the wheel, right?
They are.
They're doing this. They're buying leads. They're blah, blah, blah. And
Blimps,
it's like,
billboards.
Yeah. It's like, what if you just got on the phone and just called everyone you know or called people you didn't know? I mean,
the thing
called the phone book.
Is
like
if you look in your phone, like under contacts, and you literally just scroll all the way to the bottom, it'll tell you how many people in there. I bet you every one of you have at least 300-400.
100%.
Yeah. So there's 300 or 400 people you can call in one day. Like, you got to pick up the phone and start dialing.
Yeah, the beauty of this business, it's a contact sport.
Very. Yeah.
Right? It's so as many people as you can contact, get your name out there. So I think that's genius, dude. You took an opportunity, you saw a bunch of phone numbers and names, and you're like, I'm going to call all of them.
Yeah, and like a lot of them are like, oh yeah, we're not really interested, like quit calling, whatever. And like you can't get discouraged. You just got to keep calling because like it only takes one yes, and then you got something going. You know what I mean? So like from those 100 business cards, it's
pretty badass, dude.
It's interesting though. I mean, and especially a place like that, which is like probably one of the busiest restaurants in the area. Like that's smart, right?
I mean, you just know it's local people that obviously live in the area. You're not calling from the white pages where the people might live 2 hours from you. They're right there local, and I think it was a good.
Well, and another thing too is when you're calling business cards, right? Some of those people are sources of business.
Yeah.
It's a good contact.
Contractors, things like that. And I feel like if you look for a well to drink from as opposed to just the cup of water, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where you got to go.
No, I agree.
Great analogies. Salvatore.
Man.
Salvatore's on point.
Yeah,
today.
he's killing it, dude.
Not a cup, but a well. I like that.
It's the lettuce, brother.
It's that double shot.
It's that fresh lettuce.
Man.
I mean that is awesome. So what do you feel like when you started in the business? Obviously, it was pretty hot. We got super hot going into the spring. I mean, I remember like our winter was hot. When usually it slows down, got to spring, it was crazy how busy we were, right? Yeah. So going to kind of like what we're seeing is the market slowing down? Has it peaked? And in your opinion, what are you kind of seeing? I think we just talked about it a little bit prior.
Yeah, so I think 4 months ago it was a heavy seller's market.
Yeah.
I still think it's starting to switch to a buyer's market. Like people are starting to write offers that are not full price, not overpriced. They're starting to kind of put in concessions. They're not waiving inspections. They're giving people a little more occupancy, whatever. And I just feel like it's kind of switching over to a buyer's market.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of backup offers get accepted and or offers that were rejected off the bat now coming back and saying, hey, we didn't get any other bites.
Yeah.
We'll meet you halfway, right?
You want to buy my house, please?
Yeah.
Please.
And it's so funny because the listing agent, right, and especially like as a listing agent, you have to think it's still a seller's market, just to kind of put your best foot forward, I should say, for the seller, right? Yeah. So we got a lot of heat on this one, whatever, right? A lot of activity. We're waiting for some other offers.
Yeah.
We're not going to lock this up today.
Look,
and then no other offers come in, and 3 days later, you're like.
I feel like a lot of sellers are like coming back down to earth too. Like 4 months ago, like a $200,000 house, you're like, oh, let's list it at $240. It's like, no, let's not say we did because like it's not going to appraise, and then we're gonna have an issue. You know what I mean? So like,
there's a reality check happening right now,
big time,
100%, especially on the seller side. I see for sale by owners. I got someone in my neighborhood selling their house for $480,000 or something like that. I bought mine for $390 a year ago. Dude, chill out.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. It's like trying to retire off one sale, man.
I think there are still some pockets that are crazy, though.
Yeah.
You know,
there are, absolutely.
certain areas where
Yeah.
it's like no matter what, conventional cash are just ruling, right?
Yeah.
But
There's still going to be those houses that
Yeah.
are super hot. You're going to have homes that are going to be multiple offers because there's
Yeah.
those houses will always exist.
Yeah.
But the overall theme, in my opinion, are like those like houses that weren't perfect, that were still getting multiple offers, aren't getting the multiple offers anymore.
Right. I mean, the market's not like Costco. It's not like you can go there and just, go and there's a plethora of houses. But definitely I feel like people who felt like they may have waited too long, right? Like, oh, shit, April was when I should have sold. Now it's like probably a flood of people who had that mindset to see what would happen are realizing that it's leveling off, and now it's time to actually put the house on the market.
Absolutely.
What I'm seeing
before the end of the year.
So the last 3 transactions I did were people buying houses. Not the last 3, but I've had 3 in the recent last month or so, where the people buying the house were buying investment properties.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing personally is if you're a guy that owns 15 investment properties and you're starting to see the market kind of going down a little bit, a lot of people are starting to think about cashing in.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I always wondered, where is this inventory going to come from? And I never really thought about the investment property inventory that's out there of people holding on to these properties that have probably made quite a bit on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, at what point do you cash in that lottery ticket?
It would be an interesting, and I'm sure you could probably do this, pull up public records by non-homestead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And call the owner of record and just say, hey, I don't know what you're thinking, your situation with your tenants, whether it's family, actual renters, but now might be the time.
Ooh, that's a good play. Ooh.
I sell a lot of homes in Burton that are like, 30, 20, 40 grand, whatever.
Yeah.
And like 4 months ago, there was a ton of them. And like all my investor buddies were like, yeah, let's buy them. And like they're still looking for them. And there's literally nothing out there. Like the Burton, I don't know, it's just kind of even, I don't know. People, I think they're like holding on to stuff, waiting to sell it because they think they're going to get way more money. And I'm like, I don't think it's going to last much longer.
It's trying to predict what's going to happen in the market. We can't.
I don't
predict.
see a crash. But
No,
definitely
dude.
a leveling off and probably
They
ebbs and flows
They're like
with
still
the
trying
season.
to ride it up to the top.
But I
I'm
don't
like,
think we're there right now. I think
Well,
right now we're seeing a leveling off.
I think what
I
you
think
could
so.
probably say is if you look at the past 3 years, right?
Yeah.
A steep incline with maybe very little bumps between seasons. Now it's going to probably become a seasonal market again.
Yeah,
Where,
that's
all
a
right,
great point.
April up, fall down. It's just I think that the seasons are going to have a lot more effect as we continue. But again,
We're normalizing,
but
dude.
no one has that crystal ball. It could get nuts again. Who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
it could just be this much tougher next year.
yeah.
We don't know. But ultimately, I think it's just like we say all the time. It's like locking a rate or doing this or buying that. If it makes sense at the moment, you should probably do it. Because whether or not you decide to wait till next year, it's not like you're going to make an extra 50 grand on your house, right?
Yeah.
Might be like, all right, instead of selling it for $240 next year, you could sell it for $245.
There's
you
a lot
wanna
more
wait
new
another year
builds,
and make
too.
8
Yeah.
more mortgage payments?
A lot of new builds.
Yeah, the new build thing's a big deal. Like I feel like that's kind of people are like, why buy a used house when I can go buy a new one for $130 a square foot?
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what's interesting though, and I'm sorry to
No, you're
cut you
good, man.
off,
You're
but
good.
so yesterday, I was talking to an agent. There's this development that he had. I think it was in Bruce Township or something like that,
Right.
and he's saying, for a while it was like, all right, we just got to find the right builders, and he kind of had it going, and then it ended up that no one wants to build because the price of materials with the tariffs have gone up quite a bit. So, for example, lumber, a lot of it comes from Canada. Drywall comes from China. Now all of a sudden, that 50, 60,000 or that you'd make on a house or two, probably in a spec or a development, is now 30. And it's like, okay, it's going to take 8-9 months to do this. I mean, that's like a real estate commission on the house,
Yeah.
And why would you put it all out there, especially as a builder? You actually, as a spec, you have to front it all.
Yeah.
So what if the market just has a small correction? Now you're into this house for break even. You just work for free for a year.
No, I
It's
totally
nuts.
agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing that happened in the news, and so Fannie Mae was being sued. There's like a hedge fund guy, and I don't know if the audience understands this, but Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac at the crash, basically the government came in and just took them over, infused them with capital, so that to protect the housing market, which was understandable back then, right?
yeah.
They still basically own them. So over the last, and they're really healthy, they're super profitable. So the government is basically skimming off all these profits as retribution for the money that they put into it. We're talking about they've made trillions of dollars off this endeavor. So there's a guy, he was trying to sue him, and it just got rejected by the courts. Like basically the court said, you don't, there's no, there's no way that like this is gonna, like, you have no grounds to sue, because he was basically saying it's time to give up Fannie Mae's your ownership in Fannie Mae so they could go back to being public, right? Basically, Fannie Mae stock started rising when this came out, and it just got rejected. So I mean, I guess the question that I have for everyone is: are we comfortable with really the government kind of seizing control of an entity that is really supposed to be private? It's kind of a weird thing. It's very China.
Well, it hasn't been since 2009, 2010. Yeah. So it's like things haven't really been bad, in the past years. I think
it's not about being bad or good. It's a philosophical question,
right? Well, I
really,
think, I guess for us, but in the behind the scenes and the reality of it, it's a monetary question, right? It's probably like, okay, we've been making all this money here while we basically break even on rates, right? Is it something that might happen once the government starts to make money on their money, right? Because they've been also the same ones who are dishing this money out at record lows, right? So where do they
Fannie
make their
Mae's
money?
profitable, dude. They really are. I mean, I could pull it up.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
but
Fannie Mae doesn't make money on rates, right? The Fed does. Fannie Mae makes servicing or money on, essentially securitizing all those loans.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And the government skims it off the top. So
correct. How'd you like if the government was skimming your money off the top? Well, they do.
They do every single day,
and I don't like it.
Bitches. You're right.
Garbage. And it is funny. It sucks, but like,
you're right. I'm like,
here we are sitting on a podcast, basically blasting the government, and no one's gonna. It's not like we're gonna.
Dude, we don't even know who they are, and they're taking 30% of our money, dude. What? Garbage.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind paying. Like, I'd pay taxes. I don't give a shit about paying taxes, but I want my streets gilded in gold.
Yeah, and instead you get potholes that lead to China.
Like, if I'm gonna pay taxes, like what the shit, man? Where's the money going?
Yeah. Dude, don't say what the shit. It just sounds like a 5-year-old.
Okay.
I'm like
what
their first time they swore.
What the shit, man?
I'm just saying, like, look. Aside from making fun of me right now for how I speak, like, we pay a lot of money in taxes. Our schools suck. Our roads suck. I get it. Like,
but that's like
America.
That's like a microcosm of Detroit.
That's who it affects me. It affects me. That's what I'm talking about. I don't give a.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if that's due to taxes or possibly
poor management of our money.
Poor management of our money locally.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I feel
but
like
in
the
the grand
government
scheme of
officials
things,
line their pockets, and it's kind of, you know what I mean? Like, let's say they make
I
$1
don't
million,
know.
they're like, oh, here's $100,000.
I hope that's
for the
not.
roads.
I mean, I really wish I had more faith in the people running our shit.
I don't think I do.
Yeah. Well,
Jessica, what do you think? What do you think?
No,
No.
I don't have faith in them at all. Our
Neither do
schools
I.
are so broke.
I'm with
Isn't
her.
the lottery money, isn't that supposed to go to schools, roads, and all
my
that?
my wife's a teacher. She's been a teacher for 12, 13 years. She moved to Michigan. She had to pay for a master's degree, which cost upwards of $20,000. She made at the height of her career, which she stopped working now because it doesn't make sense. She was making $42,000 a year, and that is after a long time of working. Jesus. And she was forced to get her master's degree. So how the heck is
to
she
make $42,000?
So 6 years
a
in
year.
college, probably what, $100,000 in debt or $100,000 spent
It's
somehow
crazy,
or something, grants or whatever.
Yeah.
To make 42
Who would be a teacher right now? Like, if I was in school and they're like, you can rack up all this debt, you got to get your master's, and you'll never get paid any money, and you've got to bring your own supplies to school. Like, my wife was buying her own supplies.
That's when you come work for Scott Brothers Real Estate Group.
There it is. If you're a teacher and you want to get out, Scott Brothers.
Well,
There's only one of them, though.
I mean,
that should be your quote.
for
Scott
the most
Brothers.
part, it's
only
a
one of them.
very selfless career,
It
and I
is.
guess there's people who kind of do that, and
Nobody does. Everybody that is in that profession, even if they love it, hate it. They're miserable, dude.
No,
It's
I
hard to
wouldn't
be happy when
necessarily
your stomach's
say
growling.
everyone,
You know what I
but
mean? Making
yeah,
40 grand
I mean,
a year
it's
is tough.
It's tough. I mean, but you got to look at the average of everyone, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who do that or work their ass off and make $30,000-$40,000.
Yeah,
a
but
year.
you're not forced to get a master's degree, rack up debt, go to college, and then get out of college, and then you're also teaching our youth.
true.
It's a pretty important position.
Yeah,
right?
no, I think they should definitely. I'm not saying that they shouldn't get paid more.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
just
police
saying,
officers should get paid more too.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
make the same kind of money.
Yeah.
It's like, how are some of the most important and influential people in our community getting paid 30, 40 grand a year? Like, how does that even work?
And you're making as much as you are. It's a travesty.
Yeah, right.
By the way,
it's kind of nuts, right?
By the way, Scott Brothers showed me a picture of his house, and he's like, "Yeah, I got a track." I mean, I go, "How'd you hurt your leg?" He goes, "I got a track in my backyard."
Dirt biking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Oh," he shows me this picture. It's not a. It's a 2
Motocross.
miles
Yeah,
wide.
dude. Here, let me pull
We'll
it up.
pull it up. We're gonna show you. Like, I'll post it on our Facebook. I mean, it's you could have legit motocross races on this thing. It's massive.
That's badass.
Dude, let me try to find it. Dude. Let me see.
We're on the air. Nobody can see it.
Well, I'm about to pull it up.
All right. Well,
I mean, you got to have fun.
I'm gonna move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So no, I mean, Scott Brothers is a very interesting character.
So here it is, dude, right here. So check it out.
I mean, it looks like a Mario Kart track. Like legitimately looks like a Mario Kart track.
Looks like the highway in Royal Oak.
Yeah.
So, all right, Scott, that's enough about your track.
Real estate.
Yeah, let's go back to real estate. So I don't know. I don't even know if you understand this as much as you probably think you do potentially. But there's two sects. No, I shouldn't have said that. There's two parts of our business as far as lending, and there's like they're different in their own way. There are what are called mortgage brokers, and then you've got your direct lenders and banks, right, Sal? So do you want to try to explain the difference? No?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I can.
So, if you were if they consider a mortgage banker someone who works for a lender that's lending their own money, they have their own underwriters potentially, they have their set guidelines and rules and whatnot, and you work directly for them. Depending, if like, for example, if you work at a bank, you don't even have to have license. The bank holds that license for you, essentially, and you're one of their workers. A mortgage broker is someone who they broker the deal out. They work with multiple investors that, hey, we can do crazy, low FICO loans, and we've got our A-paper lender, we've got, our guy who does investors, blah, 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 and you broker that out. Now, I think there's probably a common misconception that brokers charge additional fees.
That's what the banks say, right?
Yeah.
Why would you use a middleman? Why wouldn't you go straight to the source?
You're gonna have to pay a middleman.
I
They
used to
tax
say
them.
it,
But
yeah.
I
The
think
banks have a lot of overlays, though. Like, and if you don't meet that one bank's criteria, then, you're better off dealing with somebody like that.
So yeah, let's talk. That's a great point, right?
Yeah, because, like, if you walk into, I'm not saying anything about one bank, but let's say you go into Chase Bank and they're like, hey, we require a 620 score. We need this, 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 and this. Whereas if you go to, like, let's say Mortgage One or Cross Country Mortgage or a different place, they can say, hey, we have all these different options, and, this might be the best fit for you.
Right. So that's one big difference is we as brokers, Sal, we do have multiple options to do a lot of different things because we've got different investors.
right.
Right.
And what's cool about a broker is, if you get your own warehouse lines and you have the proper licensing, you can be a broker and a banker.
Right.
Right. So we have one channel that is banker, which we can get very competitive on.
Yeah.
And then we have our broker channel, which is still competitive, but nonetheless has other options for different people.
Yeah.
So the thing is, though, that I think what most people think and that what the people say about the middleman and the additional fee. I mean, I'm trying to think of an analogy that's like proper, but basically, we're getting the product very cheap,
Yeah.
and selling it at a market rate. I mean, if
We get
if we were-
wholesale rates. is
yeah,
what
we
call
don't.
it,
It's
right?
not like we're buying the rates from the bank at the same price that they'd be giving them out retail, and then charging additional fees
Yeah.
on top. I mean, that's
we
what.
get it at a lower discount because we're brokering it out.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So
So I got a thing. So, like, I just recently bought into a thing called Sync, Commissions Inc. It's a
Yeah.
CRM.
yeah.
So I called Google AdWords because Commissions Inc. uses Google AdWords to give you leads. So I called Google AdWords and I'm like, hey, can I just buy the leads, in the SEO from you guys at a pretty good price? And they're like, hey, Scott, it's going to be around $18 to $20 a lead. And then I call Commissions Inc. and they're like, hey, if you use us, it's $6 or $7 a lead.
For the same lead.
Yeah, so the same lead. So they have what they call a premier partnership with Google. So they get it at a huge discount, and they're still selling it to me at a discount compared to what I could buy it at the bank or at Google for. You know what I mean? So, like,
Right.
it's just better off to go through.
Well,
the
because they buy
company.
them in bulk.
Yeah, they buy so
Like,
much.
Yeah, an extremely large amount of them that they
Yeah.
can sell it. Maybe they buy it at $5 and they sell it to you at $7.
Yeah.
Right.
And if I go buy it, I'm going to pay $18.
Yeah. So the audience understands, and even some direct lenders who do their own retail are also wholesale lenders. So just for instance, I'm going to give an example. If I can actually write a loan as a wholesale lender, as a broker through Quicken, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know that because they might get paperwork and it might say Quicken Loans on it, but you're going to Omega Lending, right?
Right.
Because they've got a wholesale channel.
Well, same thing with Caliber, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everyone has, a lot of these lenders also have a retail channel, and it's funny because often we come up in competition with them, right? And it's like, well,
and we're using the same.
well, they have a better rate or they have a worse rate, and it doesn't really matter because I guess it just depends on that specific loan officer's deal who's writing it. But often, as a broker, you can compete against their retail presence, which is funny, and I think that's kind of part of the war in the background.
Yes.
That people are talking about in our business is, is it cannibalism, right? Is it like, okay, we have an opportunity, we have a client, we're going to send it to you, right, and try to build a partnership with you, whether it's, and I'm just throwing names out there, no one in particular, it's not like it's just one, but, we want to send you loans, and now we're competing with one of your retail loan officers, and I mean, I guess where's the loyalty lie within the corporation, right? It probably comes down to where is there more money,
Right. Exactly.
No,
So I got a lot of flack last night. I posted something on LinkedIn, and I was talking about how a Quicken Loans office, like I was using Quicken as an example. Well, we are signed up with Quicken on the wholesale side, and wholesale got upset with me because I was basically making fun of Quicken. Well, I compete against Quicken.
Yeah.
All the time. And unfortunately, they do make mistakes. And there is something that, like, I feel very strongly about on the retail side. So I said that with people at wholesale, like, we're partners. I'm like, listen, dude, the reality is I'm competing against you every single day, right?
Yeah.
You're one of my biggest competitors. You can't expect the two not, like, it's contradictory for you to try to be my partner on one side. So on the back end of our business, you've got people like Matt Ishbia, who's United Wholesale Mortgage. He does zero retail. He's very broker-centric. He's actually leading the charge with a few other people, kind of saying, like, as a broker, you should never use the retail guys. So it's kind of funny to see. If you go on LinkedIn and kind of look at what's going on, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, you probably don't see any of this, but it is. There's literally like this little like battle back and forth.
It would be like if Remax was like, or I'm sorry, let's say KW, right?
KW, right?
Let's say they had like a Redfin channel where they go out and they flat list, listings for 1.5% or whatever. And
so you walk into somebody's house and they're like,
but I'm Scott with KW, right?
Yeah.
It's basically where you hang your license or whatever, and it's like, well, we're actually going to go with Keller Direct,
yeah,
right? Because they're gonna
that's what it
they're
is.
listing it for $2,000. You're like, what the? Why do I work here?
Customer service too, like just being like a real estate agent. When I see like certain banks or certain lenders or whatever, I'm just like, maybe we should go over here. You know what I mean? Like,
And that's what. And I'm sorry for my Quicken. I have a lot of friends at Quicken, and you guys got to understand something. This is like legitimate, and probably one of you will hear this, but
because sometimes
it's
the
a
deal
different
might
language.
not happen.
Going consumer direct on a refi, well, they've been a refinance shop for a long time. They're trying to figure out purchase, and then all of a sudden trying to communicate with the brokers. They're different languages, and they haven't figured it out yet. Where they're a little behind. They're trying to pump money into their wholesale network, and you want to know why? Because refinances are drying up, and who writes all the purchases business right now? Brokers.
Yeah.
Right. So
It's kind of in the same vein of what we're talking about, but it's an interesting subject. I was at a closing yesterday, and I was talking to the listing agent, and we just kind of got on conversation. He said, I don't ever try to, which I think, has its good and its bad points, but he says, I don't ever try to refer out another lender if someone's already with someone and they're happy with them, unless they absolutely suck. Because he goes, that loan officer likely knows a lot of agents, and if all of a sudden, you're trying to get, put in a different direction by your agent, that LO could easily be like, hey, I don't know him, but I know this guy, and he kills it in that market, And I guess as a loan officer, I've never thought about it like that, probably because most of our business comes from direct referrals when we try to keep them together, but,
Yeah.
I
don't think, at the end of the day, it's not about the loan officer, the real estate agent, or anybody. It's about the client.
Yeah.
And making sure that they're taken care of
how
the
do
right
they
way.
get the
For
best
sure.
experience? Right.
So, like, if they're at Quicken Loans and they come to me, and I like see their pre-approval and I see that it says 5.99%, right? Blah blah blah. I'm gonna be like, hey man, like with that credit, I think we should maybe shop around.
Yeah.
Like it's best to advise them. I don't think there's nothing wrong with shopping. It's all about the
Right.
client, and if they shop and they get a better rate, like too bad. If
And their comfort level, you know.
Yeah, you know,
like,
it's just a better deal for them. Period.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, when you look at the amortization table and you're like, hey, I just spent $100,000 in a house, but at the end I'm paying $180. You know, that interest rate makes a difference over 30
sure.
years. So like it's best to shop.
100%. But I'm gonna fight you a little bit on that because this is what I'm gonna say. You also need a professional that knows how to handle the deal. You need a good team because buying a house is pretty complicated, right?
Oh, you do for sure.
So there are ABC lenders online that'll be an eighth lower in interest rate, but is that eighth worth like having a shitty transaction?
Well, I'm
Right?
not saying that at all. I'm saying like.
Make sure you're doing the best thing for you.
Yes, it's not just the interest rate. Like it's the whole process.
Package.
Like if I know that there's certain banks that, and it could be a 25-day deal and it's gonna be a 45-day deal, just because I'm going through an assembly line of 12 people to make this happen. It's just better to go through somebody who's local and you can walk right into their store and talk to them.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult. And again, I got a lot of flack for my post yesterday. It's really kind of funny that I matter. Because it's crazy. Because I'm
Big league.
I don't think in the
I'm
grand
nobody.
scheme, it doesn't matter.
It
though.
doesn't matter. But like
No.
people really, I mean, I have friends there that got upset with me, and I'm like, dude, it's like, it's the reality of where you're at. Unfortunately, you guys haven't figured it out, and I talked about it. So buzz off. I don't give a fuck. So,
I love that. And that is the bottom line.
that is the bottom line. Sorry. Yeah. So that's what I got. Sal, what do you got, man? I'm done with that topic.
Yeah, you beat it to death.
What about mindset? I think.
There we go.
Wow, take the reins. I like it.
There it is. All right. So
I think we got a third host.
Yeah, we did.
I like
that's funny. I think people so there's a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. And I think
good.
that some people think if their life is sucking and their situation sucks, that everyone else does too. And I think I think people need to get over that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, you know, in our business and running our business, there's like two ways to look at it, right?
Yeah.
Do you try to cut costs or do you try to get more business?
More business. every
Right?
time.
And that's the funny thing. It's like everyone always is, and mind you, be smart with the way you spend your money, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And even in a personal life, especially in a commission role or what we do, it's like, man, you know, I should probably sell that thing. It's like $2,000. I could like pay down one of my credit cards, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, or I could just sell another house, you know? And it's like, how do you get there though? And I think that's the biggest thing as far as a mindset goes is like, if you think of things, you know, on a per deal basis or like, how's this going to look? If I don't close this deal, what's going to happen? As opposed to, man, there are so many deals out there, you know, like I realize that if I'm not losing a lot,
Yeah.
I'm not winning a ton. You know what I mean? And that's like one of the biggest things as far as mindset goes is like if I lose this deal, there's 4 more that I could get today.
So for me, I think that people tend to, like, if they're doing well or they know something works or like a system works or whatever they're doing is good or whatever, they always try to make it like, oh, that's just mine and I'm not going to share it because it'll go away or there's not enough of something. And at the end of the day, you become more powerful in a bigger deal by telling people what you're doing and explaining how you're doing it and what, like, your kind of journey, not just where you ended up, because people love that stuff. And it's not, there's always going to be houses to sell. There's always cars to sell. There's always whatever. And if you just explain to people, this is what I'm doing, you're not going to lose anything. You're just going to become better. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to look up to you and you're going to be like, you're going to have a bigger name and a better company because you're like explaining exactly the clarity. Like, it's see-through. This is exactly what I'm doing. This is what works. This is what sucks. And that right there is an abundance mindset. Scarcity's like, oh,
I got to hold on to it. I'm so scared. I don't want to tell.
I sell this by doing this, but I'm not going to tell anyone.
Well,
I'm going to lie to
trickery.
people.
The funny
and
thing
whatever.
would be
you
like,
don't have to do that.
You don't.
Just be a good human.
in our
period.
business or our offices
agree.
or our places of employment, it's like, hey, do you know, I just got this Tom Smith loan. Wait, what's his phone number? Oh, I got him. No, that's my deal. And it's like,
Shut up, dude. Move on.
okay,
Yeah.
take it. There's many more.
There's
if you're that worried about it, here you go.
It's unlimited.
And
So-
that's kind of where at least like in our last place of employment, I feel like that was huge. It was always like,
Yeah.
and finally,
Yeah.
at first I was like, fuck that guy,
Yeah.
took my deal.
Straight
But
up.
now it's like, have it,
Have it, dude. Yeah.
because
It's
I'm
not
not
worth
worried
your
about
time.
that. And if he's gonna go with you, why would I feel any bit entitled that that's my deal if this guy didn't call me and tell me that he's going with you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not my deal, clearly.
That's
Right.
like
I didn't
people,
lock
like,
it up.
holding people into like a buyer's contract or any kind of bull
Yeah.
crap.
What are you
like
doing?
At the end of the day,
Dude, what are you doing?
it's
Holding
like-
someone hostage?
Yeah, it's like, dude, you're not doing what's right for the client, which means you're sucking at your job.
Right.
So be a better
Well,
person.
once in a while, I'll have a client who signed a contract and they go with someone else. It's not really my place to be like, I might say, hey, just so you know,
Yeah.
let me know when they buy because I'm going to get half that commission. I'm like, for doing what?
You didn't do anything, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's bullshit. Well,
You
You're-
didn't follow up with them. You
Yeah,
didn't keep
you
them
lost.
happy.
Play better.
that is not your
Play
fault.
better.
Yeah,
Play
Play better.
Play better, dude.
Yeah.
Should have played
You
better.
should have played better.
If
You
you
didn't
were
play
doing the
better.
right
Wise
thing.
words of Andy Dirks.
Andy Dirks said
love
that.
that.
Andy
Yeah.
Dirks
Play
said,
better.
play better, dude.
Dude,
Play
that-
better.
We use it to this
Should
day.
have done
That's
better.
it.
Should have played better.
It was
That's
awesome.
right.
Man.
So-
I love that.
And to your point, like, the whole trickery thing. So I will tell you that for me, it was a big transition because I was a leads guy. I worked at Quicken for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
I worked at another place where we did leads, and it was all churn and burn. So my goal was to get someone on the phone, hammer them, get them committed. So I was like a hard salesman, right? And I was
Yeah.
good at it.
Oh, yeah.
And then for me to go transition to being like a human again and like
Yeah.
creating relationships, it took a little bit, Sal. Like I wasn't like super comfortable with it because I was like, I'm Paul Apostolakis and I'm gonna sell you a mortgage.
Yeah.
Well, nobody gives a shit,
No,
right?
they
No.
don't.
So what works, to your point, is be honest, be upfront, fall on the sword if something's wrong,
Yeah.
right? Just be very transparent, and people will appreciate that. Things happen, and instead of trying to like sell around it, just be open.
Well, and the truth is all on the paper.
Yeah.
Whether or not they understand it is your job.
Yeah.
As a loan officer, like, I could tell you what that this means that, but in reality, it's a fee or it's a cost on there, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Oh,
your
yeah.
rate, and if anyone else looks at it who knows what they're talking about, hey, you just got charged like 3 points for that rate, right? So there's no hiding around.
There is a lot of trickery happening right now. A lot of clients are so rate focused,
Yeah.
right? So the thing that happens a lot, and I've talked about this, is people get charged points just to get a lower, so the LO can show a lower rate because it's uncomfortable to say, rates have gone up. This is where it's at. I'm going to charge them 3 points. They're not going to notice the points, and I'm going to give them a 4.25 or 4.1. But the math doesn't make sense. It's not what's right for the client.
Yeah.
But the client doesn't know that. They feel like they're getting a good deal because they're paying all these points, and they just don't realize it
No, yeah. Yeah.
because consumers don't get it, right? So to your point, a lot of trickery. It's a lot harder. It's a lot harder for us to be honest in our business, and it's a lot harder for me to tell you the truth because we probably lose some business because of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like I gain a lot more because of it.
Yeah, and I feel like if you just are straight up honest with somebody, they're gonna come back like with their friends. They're gonna be like, hey, what might have been slightly more or blah blah blah, whatever. It was competitive, but as long as you told them the truth,
Way better, dude.
yeah, they come back. They're like, oh yeah,
way
that guy's
better.
awesome.
Yeah, like
People are willing to pay more for good service. Like if your service sucks, they're not gonna want to pay more. But if you're like a badass, they're gonna be like, hey, we might have had another $100 fee. We're gonna go back to this guy because he's great.
Yeah, it's worth it. There's a
yeah.
value proposition there where there's some worth there, right? You're working the absolute professional, or sometimes you're not. So it is true, man. In our business, unfortunately, it is a cutthroat business, and people don't really see a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But sometimes the consumers get hurt by it,
No, I agree.
right? So that's, I guess, my whole point with all this, to wrap it all in like a nice little bow. You have to work with a good team. And honestly, like I used to think the first step in getting a house was get a mortgage, get pre-approved. It's not, in my opinion, anymore. Find a good agent, and then from that agent, ask them for 2 or 3 referrals for lenders because they're going to have a really good idea of who's good,
Yeah, no, I agree.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Somebody coming to you with a pre-approval from Chase or Bank of America, there's a lot of pressure for them to write pre-approvals. So
Yeah.
they fling them out, right?
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't refer those companies because you want to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah. And like it's just nice too, like when you get to the closing table to have your loan officer sitting there. So you actually like you know what I mean? Like
Well, above and beyond that, like
Yeah.
home inspectors, things like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to probably stumble upon a realtor or a loan officer, but
Yeah.
how many people offhand know home inspectors? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's just realtors are pretty good sources of like
right.
I honestly, I used to believe, and this was drilled in my head.
Contractors.
Get your mortgage first as a consumer. Do not do that. Find your agent so they can direct you, because nobody is more incentivized to make sure you have a good transaction and the deal actually goes through than the real estate agent.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people just go to Google, type in, about to buy a house, what do I do?
Right.
And the first thing they see is Quicken Loans, Chase Bank, Bank of America, all the big ones.
Yeah.
But the problem is they're that big because they're jacking their prices up so they can pay for that much advertising. And, I think that's big.
Yeah, and for me, it's not about price. I've spent a lot of. I really think if the price was higher and it was absolutely like the best service on the planet, but it really.
But if the price is higher than the service sucks, then what?
I didn't say it. Don't come after me. I didn't say it. That's it, Sal. I think we're pretty much almost done. Jessica, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
By the way, we finally got a code for the door, which I'm really excited about.
You're welcome.
I don't know about the lag. Last week we still had a lag. Dave has yet to respond to any of my calls, texts, emails.
I'm watching it, and it doesn't seem like you have one now.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Get out of here. We fixed it?
I think so.
All right. So
It's working.
So for the audience, just so you know, you can find us on Stitcher, iTunes. You can go to our Facebook page at Omega Lending. You can go to Podcast Detroit. We're on there, right, Jessica? That's your thing, right?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else I'm missing?
iTunes? Did you say that
I said
already?
iTunes, yeah.
Okay.
Anything
No.
else? I think that's it.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Scott Brothers, there's only one of you. Can you tell the audience how they can get a hold of you, man?
Yeah. So, do you want my phone number or what?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Dude, I don't.
Phone number.
Yeah.
810-447-1716, or you can go to scottbrothersrealestate.com.
Say that one more time.
810-447-1716, or scottbrothersrealestate.com.
You could also email him at makingrealestategreat
@gmail.com.
I was laughing. That's literally
That's pretty good.
Making real estate
That's
great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Was
I love
making
it.
real estate great again?
No,
Dawn?
not again.
That,
I couldn't do again because it's always been great. You know what I mean?
that's awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Love you all. Goodbye.
Later. I never done a podcast. Pretty cool.